everyone, and welcome to Module 1 of Bugged Out Off the Grid. And in this module, we're going to talk about why would you even want to bug out in the first place and go through some reasons that you would need to in the first place. None of us want to leave everything we have, but the situation might arise where we have to. You know, a war or any kind of military action over here in the States could cause us to have to leave our area, whether that be internal or whether that be something, you know, from across the sea, somebody coming over and invading us. And if we're in one of those hot spots, then we're going to have to either get out or fight to our death, one or the other. It could be something like a natural disaster, or earthquakes or floods or fires or something like that causes our homes to be uninhabitable, and we need to leave. Or it could be riots and people just going absolutely crazy, and it's right in our backyard, and we have to kind of get out, maybe just for a couple of days until all of it subsides, and then maybe go back and see what exactly is left. But it's something that would be your survival. You know, do you stay and fight for what you have against 500 people, or do you get out of there and live to fight another day, hopefully? And like I said, we don't want to leave everything that we have. We've spent years building up our food supply and our water supply and all of our supplies in general. So, you know, having that home and having that place where everything is a lot better than going out and, you know, if you don't have a bug out location, you're basically sleeping in a tent for a few days and trying to figure out what your next step is. And like I said, with all the stuff we have, the water, the food, we're going to have to figure out, kind of start over again, and how to figure out how to do all of that stuff. And that's why, you know, thinking about a bug out location right now is important, because this is the stuff that we could think about and we can start planning and doing right now. That way, when something happens, we're not scrambling around. We've got everything figured out. We've got it set. It might not be as good as what we have at home, but we're going to survive and hopefully build on that as time goes on. You know, if something turns into something extended or long term, we can build on all of that stuff and slowly become, you know, more self-sufficient, I suppose. We'll never be self-sufficient, but in a bug out situation, you're going to have to live off the land and all of that stuff. So, you know, leaving the comforts of our home, this is something we're not going to want to do, because it's really it's a lot easier to defend ourselves when we're living in our homes, because of the structure and all of that. And I love this house right here. I saw this the other day, and it's basically looks like a nice house, and then, you know, if something happens, it gets locked down and it turns into a giant brick, basically, and pretty tough to get in. Now, if somebody wants to get in, they're going to get into your house. You know, if somebody comes up with a tank or something like that, they're just going to blow your house down. But this would be something that would be pretty impenetrable for, you know, just a gang of 5 or 10 marauders. They're going to, you know, not know what to do. And then other things you can do in your house is have little secret compartments and stuff. And for the life of me, I don't know why you would want to put a screen door in the middle of your kitchen, but hey, you know, it's a good idea. I think I would probably camouflage that to, you know, fit in with the floor so people couldn't see that. But, you know, good idea. Or something like this, where, you know, the stairs, to say somebody comes into your house, say, you know, FEMA or the government comes into your house and says, hey, you've done such a great job preparing that we're going to take 75% of what you have because you have so much. There's other people that need this stuff. So having stairs like this, somebody comes into your house, they don't notice right offhand, unless they know the makeup of your house, that, hey, there's something under there. How do you get under there? So this is kind of a good idea too. You know, all of us don't have the money for all of this stuff, but it would be pretty neat. Now, this is something that I've done recently, and what I did is just made a shelf that was a countertop extension off of my kitchen countertop, and it's got the faceplate on it where you can leave it open and it looks nice for, you know, when people come over, or you can close it and it doesn't have the cookies and all the dry goods in there anymore. But this can be a place that if somebody does come into your house and tries to take what you have and say, hey, we're taking all of your food. Well, you know, your food is in a few different areas, so they're not going to get everything. They might get out with some of your stuff, but if it's not all in one area, they might miss it here and there. That's why I don't suggest ever putting all of your eggs in one basket. Have your stuff all over the house, because if somebody comes in and takes your stuff, you're going to be kind of hosed. So, and then why should we prepare now for bugging out? And that's basically because I personally don't want to be one of these guys that is just kind of hosed. One of these people that is dependent on the government, and they expect FEMA to help out with everything. And when everything goes down, that's what our government's here for, right? Well, I know better. When you think about how many people are in this country, and if something big or disastrous happened, you've even seen it in New Orleans with Katrina and all of that. And that's probably where this picture was taken from. But FEMA wasn't there for days, and people were kind of on their own. And I don't want to be one of these people that are sleeping in one of these little cots around all of these other people, because you don't know who those people are. You don't know what illnesses they have. You don't know what their morals are. Are they going to go through all your stuff and take what you have? And the odds are a lot of these people, nobody's going to have anything. So if you go in there with your bug out bag, that's basically a goodie bag for them to go through when you're not paying attention, or maybe to, gang up, and 5, 6 people gang up on you and take what you have. And I don't want to be a part of that. And who knows how big this is going to get. But if something were to get big and the government had to control everybody more than they do now, because, say, martial law was enacted or something like that, I don't want to be anywhere near any of this. I would rather be far gone and set up on my own and take my own chances than to be in any one of these three pictures right here. I'll take my chances eating leaves in the wilderness or eating worms or something like that. I'm not going to do this. And that's basically why we prepare right now. Now, let's talk a little bit about bug out security, because it's not going to be like it is in your home right now. You've got four walls, and your home might not be a fortress or anything right now, but it's a lot better than, say, you're in one of these tents right here. And this will be a lot of people. There are a lot of people that just will not go to the FEMA camps, and they'll go out and make it on their own. But they didn't do any preparations in advance, so all they've got is a few tarps that they found, or looks like this guy's sitting on a pallet and got his stuff in there. But what happens when you need to go find water? Or what happens when you need to go find some food? Your tent is wide open. You either take everything you have with you and hope nobody messes with your stuff. Maybe you get to know the guy next to you and you guys team up, but the security is just not going to be there. And if we think about a bug out location right now, and we think about a place that we can go, if we own property or anything like that, we can build some fortifications around that place and make it a little bit more secure than a tent. Now, this picture is kind of, I don't know how much this would do unless the dudes were riding on horseback or something, but you get the point. I mean, you can build fortifications around your home, or your bug out location, and which would probably be your home at that point. You can fortify your perimeter. You can fortify the insides. You can, make places where you can see others coming at you, and you can take the situation into your hands and be the first to react, rather than them coming in and having the element of surprise on you. Now, some of the supplies, we'll go over some of the supplies and the skills that you're going to need for off the grid living. Say you go out, you're bugging out, and something that you planned on lasting 2 weeks, maybe that turns into a few months or even a few years. Some of the things you're going to need are more than just what's in your bug out bag. You can only carry so much in your bug out bag, and you do have your vehicle. Depending on what that vehicle is going to kind of define what exactly you can bring with you. And like I said, you're probably not going to have a big hammer or something like that and nails in your bug out bag, but you might want those in case you have to repair your structure at your bug out location, or if you have to build something at your bug out location. You're going to need a different set of supplies. And we're going to go through in a later module. We'll go through exactly what those supplies might be, given your situation, and the different supplies and all of that. So we'll go into detail about that later on as well. But supplies for survival, and you're going to need to know how to garden. Like I said, if this lasts a little while, a little longer than you thought, You're going to need to know how to garden. You're going to need to know how to hunt and trap. You're going to need to have those construction skills. Um, these are things that are going to be your survival. It's not a, you know, a well, boy, it's getting wet in here every night because the roof's leaking. I wish I knew how to fix that. You're going to have to fix that. So you're going to have those, that hammer and nails, basically. If you don't, you're going to be using a rock and try to just piece everything together, maybe some basket weaving or something like that. And then all of these are just supplies for an extended stay, stuff you're going to need just in case. And if you have a bug out location already, then this would be, maybe you can have cashless set up with all of this stuff. I don't feel comfortable at our place of just leaving everything out in the open, because you never know. If you only go up once a week or once a month, you never know what's going to be there. People are crazy these days, and they'll just go in, and even kids will go in and just have a good time on your property, and just tear everything up because they don't care how much you worked on it. Supplies for building, like I said, you're going to need to repair stuff. You're going to need to build stuff. You might have to make tools for gardening and stuff like that. So having all of these supplies and thinking about these supplies are going to be important. And like I said, I'm going to go into a detailed list about all of these supplies in a later module. And then you're going to need stuff to know how to get more water. Are you going to you're going to need supplies for filtering, like long-term filtering, not just a water filter or not just a life straw. You're going to need some stuff for water catchment and all of that stuff. And then how are you going to plant that food? You can take seeds with you, but you've got to get it in the ground. You've got to till that ground. You've got to make that a functioning garden that will sustain you. And then you're also going to need supplies for hygiene, because if something lasts for, longer than 3 weeks or a month or 3 years or whatever, you're going to need to stay clean. And that's not only just to feel good and so you don't stink for your wife or husband, but that's for health reasons. I mean, there are a lot of diseases that you can get, especially living outside where it's not going to be the cleanest environment. So you have to go hunt and or trap some food, and you're skinning a squirrel or a rabbit or something. You've got to figure out how to get that nastiness, I suppose, off of you, because that can cause other issues, and fecal matter and all of that. It's just, hygiene is going to be a huge concern as time goes on, which also goes into water and all a bunch of other stuff. So like I said, we'll go into the supplies in detail in the later module. Some of the skills, though, are the construction skills. How are you going to make shelter? How are you going to make tools? How are you going to do all of this stuff? Because all of this stuff is dependent on you now. There is no contractor. You can't call a contractor and have them come in and help build a house or put an extension on your home or anything like that. It's you are the contractor. And then trapping and hunting skills. Eventually you're going to run out of the food that you have. So you're going to need to have these skills of, setting a simple snare trap or a deadfall trap, or having these hunting skills, and the weapons and all that. We'll go into that later too. But, if all you've got is a handgun, it's going to be a lot easier to hunt something with a handgun than it is with a rifle and a scope, or even with a shotgun. So we'll go into that in a later module as well. But in gardening and foraging, what kind of food is out there that you can eat? You don't want to just pick a mushroom off the ground and then you're sick, or you don't want to. You want to know what it is in your area that is edible. Whether it tastes good or not is kind of irrelevant at that point, but you've got to know what's edible. And then you've got to know the gardening skills, because it takes a lot more to gardening than just throwing a seed in the ground and putting some water on it and then crossing your fingers. You might get a little tiny 1-inch carrot if you plant some carrots, but if you know how to garden, you do it right, you know the soil of your bug out location and all of that, it's going to be a lot easier. And gardening, like I said, is a lot more difficult than you actually think it is until you start doing it. And then your critical thinking skills, and we'll get into that here in a bit, but your critical thinking skills are going to be hugely important, because this is something that you're not going to have the option of going, oh man, I wish I would have been a little nicer to that guy, or I wish I would have put that extra nail in the 2x4 so the roof didn't fall on us. This is going to be, you need to do this or you're going to die. Like I talked about with the roof leaking, if you need to fix that roof or you're going to get wet every night, there's nothing you can do about it. So it needs to get fixed. So that critical thinking is going to be hugely important. And also having the ability to do all of this physical labor. It's sometimes we take that for granted of how hard this is going to be. We're going to be working manual labor for 12 hours a day sometimes, and all of that stuff will take a toll on us if we don't know how to do that right now. If we're not taking walks, and we're not, if we just sit on our butts like all day, like I'm guilty of a lot. If we just sit on our butts all day playing on the computer, then once we get out and have to build that stuff, we're going to find, especially in the very beginning, that we're drained of energy, and we're not going to have all the calories and all the food that we're used to having. So it's going to be tough for us. And then you're going to have to think about alternative ways of cooking, whether that's solar power or, different ways of cooking other than just your microwave and your stove that you have at your home, on an outside grill and all that. And you're going to also have to think about ways to hide that, because the smell of food is going to travel a long way. So you're basically making yourself a beacon. If you're cooking a nice steak on a grill outside and that smoke is traveling, it's going a long way. And somebody that's starving is going to smell it, and they're going to follow it to find you. And maybe they'll ask nice first. And if you don't give them anything, then they're going to have to do what they have to do. And then you're going to have to do what you have to do. And the situation escalates. So finding different ways of cooking. And like I said, I've said this a few times now, but we'll go into a lot of this in detail later on. Right now, I just want to touch on the basics of what you're going to need to do to bug out. And then alternative ways of storing food as well. If you say you go out and you kill a deer, you go out hunting and you get a deer, how are you going to store that? You're not going to be able to eat that whole entire deer before it goes bad. So, are there different ways of dehydrating that you can learn? Are there different ways of preserving food and stuff like that? You're going to need to figure all of that stuff out. And then critical thinking and planning. I wanted to go into this a little bit. Critical thinking, and here's some examples right here of what exactly critical thinking is. But basically, critical thinking is not just having a knee-jerk reaction, not just thinking, somebody comes into your camp or something and you freak out and say, "Get out of here, I'm going to shoot you." Think about what you're doing, because you've got to think about what different outcomes could come from you just screaming and yelling at somebody. The different outcomes of, do I come up to this guy and react honestly and nicely? Do I give him food? How is charity going to be taken advantage of in a post-collapse situation? I think it's going to be taken advantage of huge, but thoughtfulness is critical thinking. Make sure you plan out and make sure you think of all the different scenarios about what might happen. And in this video right here, let me click play here real quick. But in this video, this is where critical thinking comes into as well. And I'm going to go into this in quite a bit of detail later on about picking a few different routes to get to your bug out location. Some of the things that you might encounter along the way. Like in this video, we've got 3 different routes right here. And then we've got riots right here. We've got some chaos going on down here. So if we take this one route right here, we're going to have to adjust because we can't go this way. There's riots, so we decided to go this way, and then all of a sudden there's chaos right here. So we've got to take off and go out here. And that's where your critical thinking comes in, is what do I do right here? If I go off this way and I have no idea what this area is, am I going to end up going in circles, and am I going to turn the corner and all of a sudden there's more riots and chaos, or what's going to happen? So critical thinking is going to be huge when it comes to every aspect of bugging out, because decisions you make are going to be, critical decisions. They could be life or death decisions, and there's not going to be a what if or anything like that. It's going to be, you either do it this way and you take the consequences, or you do it that way and you take those consequences. But giving yourself the best odds is the way to do it. And critical thinking and planning and thinking about everything. That's what we do basically as preppers, is we think about every possible situation that we can. That way, when something presents itself, we're as ready as we possibly can be for it. So, some of the pros and cons, let's just kind of recap what we went through here. Some of the pros and cons to bugging out versus bugging in. Some of the pros are that for bugging out, some of the pros are that bugging out could be the difference between life and death. You might have to. There might be military coming to your front door. There might be hordes of zombies or something like that. And by zombies, I don't mean actual zombies. I mean people who will actually be turn into zombies, but they'll still be alive. But those people will be coming after you, and you have to get out of there. And then the possibility, and even though it's very slight, there's a possibility that you might find others to band together with. And in the beginning, I don't suggest talking to anybody basically, but you never know what's going to happen. And those situations might arise where you run across somebody. Say you've got two routes you can take, and both of them have people in the way. So you've got to use your critical thinking skills and figure out which one gives you the best odds, and then kind of get through that situation. And in going through that situation, you might find somebody that thinks basically the same way you do, or you think is going to be on your side. And then less population equals better odds for survival. And especially in the very beginning, you're basically going to be on your own. But the less people there are to kind of take your stuff, I suppose, the better your odds for survival. And in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of people. I hate to put it this way, but there's going to be a die off. There's going to be a lot of people that aren't prepared. There's going to be a lot of people that are dependent on the government. And in the beginning, until those people kind of die off, I mean, it sounds harsh, but until those people die off, you're not going to be able to trust anybody. I wouldn't anyway. And as time goes on, those people that survived are going to be the ones that have prepared, that have taken this stuff seriously, and or gotten very lucky, one or the other. But they're going to kind of adjust to the new situation, and they're going to be a little more trustworthy. I don't know, I would be very defensive about anything that I'm doing until I absolutely know somebody. But the less population in the beginning, the better. And then in your bug out location, you could have more resources depending on how well you chose your bug out location, where you're going, all of that stuff, and resources. We'll go into that later on to picking a bug out location. But resources should be one of the main factors when you're picking your bug out location, resources and security, because you're not going to last long if you find this cheap property in the middle of a desert or something. You're not going to last long if there's no water around or there's no resources for you. All you're eating is snakes, and I can't stand snakes, and I don't want to be around snakes because they're sneaky. And you get bitten by a snake in a post collapse situation, you're kind of on your own, and you better know how to deal with that. Um, so there could be more, or there should be more resources at your bug out location than you have now, even though it's not canned food or stored water or anything like that. If you live in an urban setting, you're not going to have all of this wildlife and stuff that's around you, as opposed to where you pick out your bug out location. And your current location has become a hotspot, like we talked earlier. If you've got everybody coming at you, and there is no way that you are going to survive in that home, unless you go out guns blazing. That's your choice as well. But if you need to get out, you might just have to get out. So having that location and having everything planned out now is crucial. Now, some of the cons to why you would want to, but why would you want to stay where you are? Some of the cons of bugging out. And one of the biggest things is you're going to be vulnerable on the road as you're getting to your safe location. You're going to be vulnerable at your bug out location too, but as you're trying to get there, that's kind of when everything is going to be heightened. The chaos is going to be at its peak, and everybody is going to want what you have. There are only a few of us that are preppers, and there are only, as when you consider the entire population of the United States. So that means there's 100 times more people that are not prepared for this than are. So we need to kind of be that gray man. We need to try to get out to our bug out location without anybody noticing us, because people will be flipping out. I guarantee it. And this will make you more of a target because they're going to see that, if, especially if you're walking, say you're walking somewhere and they see you with this backpack on, they might not even know what's in it, but they know they don't have a backpack and there might be something in there. So you become a target. If you've got a vehicle, say you're trying to, there's a big traffic jam on the highway. I wouldn't suggest going on the highway anyway, but you've got one of the only cars that's moving, you become a target. So, being that gray man again is something that, or just staying put where you need to stay and kind of fight for your life. And then another con of it is surviving at your bug out location is going to be much harder than surviving at home. And this is for obvious reasons. You have more supplies in your home. The structure of your home is probably more sound than the one you'll have at your bug out location. Our bug out location, I'm basically building from the ground up. So I'm going to build a cabin, and I'm not just going to go out there with a tent. Hopefully, if something happens in the next year or so, then maybe maybe I'm sleeping in a tent. But we're going to get that going, and we're going to kind of build up that location over the next couple of years, and hopefully everything lasts that long, and we can get a pretty fortified location. But surviving at your home is going to be a lot easier because you do have that defense. You know your area, you know your surroundings, and you have all of that stuff right in your home. And then one of the cons to bugging out, and this is kind of a pro and a con, but you're going to be alone for the most part, especially in the beginning. So you're going to be dependent on your skills and all of the skills of the people that are with you. So if you don't have that mad scientist with you, or somebody that MacGyver with you that knows how to do all of that stuff, you're going to have to learn all of that stuff. And that's something that can be done now as a precaution for when that stuff happens. And as time goes on, you're going to, you might be a little more willing to go out and find people, or you might have some communication with some people that you think could help you out. So that'll build up gradually over time, especially after a few months, because like I said, the people that have survived for 3 months are probably the ones that are going to help you and get you moving along in the right direction and rebuilding society. And then your supplies are going to be limited when you bug out because you only have so much room. Like I said, in your house, you've got all of this stuff, all these different places you can store stuff. But as you bug out, you basically have what you can fit in your car or what you've already stored at your bug out location. And this all depends on your bug out location itself. How long have you been stockpiling your bug out location? How long have you been doing this? Have you even started yet, or are you basically going from the stuff you have stored in your garage, throw it in your car, and then you're out? And then this is again with the critical thinking. This is where you're going to need your critical thinking skills more than ever, because every decision you make is survival. Everything you do is going to either give you the opportunity to live another day, or it's going to decrease your survival time. So all of those decisions you make and all of those decisions that you're going to be making while you're stressed out are going to be more important than ever. So what's next? That's basically it for this video. And what's next in this module? What we're going to go through is mental preparedness and physical preparedness, because in a SHTF situation or anything like that, you are going to be completely stressed out because of all the trauma and everything that's going on. I mean, there might be dead people all over the place. There might be stuff that has just completely stressed you out or stressed your family out, and you might be malnutritioned, you might be out of water. So your mental state is going to be really tough to deal with. So we're going to go through some detail about what to expect basically, and how to deal with all that stuff, and your physical preparedness as well, because like I said earlier, as you go through this, most of us are not ready for the life that we're going to have to live. We're not ready for those 12-hour days of working our butts off. A lot of these guys, especially like you think about the guys in the Great Depression that were little skinny 100-pound guys, but could outwork any of us these days. And that includes Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not saying you have to be huge like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but but you need to have that endurance and that physical ability to do everything. So we'll go through some detail about your mental preparedness and your physical preparedness as well. And then after that, we're going to go through some of the off the grid skills that you're going to need. And I'm going to make this pretty detailed. And I put Cody London in here because I think this guy is great. This guy knows exactly what he's talking about with navigation and survival skills and all of that. So a lot of that we're going to go into with the skills. And I'm going to do a whole separate module on reading maps and compasses and navigation and all of that stuff, because if we're not going to be able to drive everywhere we go. And if we have a bug out location, like in this picture, that's really secluded, it's really easy. It's easier to get lost than most people realize. So I want to go through some of those navigation skills that you're not going to be able to use. Say you have this great GPS device. Well, that's not going to work. So if you don't know how to use a compass and a map to navigate where you are, or your natural resources and natural landmarks, then you're going to find yourself lost and kind of hosed at that point. So I'm going to do a whole module on that, navigation and map reading skills and all of that. So but that's what's next. I appreciate everybody watching this video, and we'll see you in the next video.